Woo! It is windy out there today. Was on my morning run, which is one of the streaks that I have in the morning, and the wind was just whipping like you could not believe. I think it's following me. If you saw my post the other day on the Streaking app, I was on top of a 14,000 foot peak with the family, and we were just absolutely pelted with the wind. It was pretty amazing to be above the clouds. In fact, that's one of the things that I wanted to chat with you about just a little bit today as I thought through as I was running. One of the podcasts I listened to is the Robertson clan, you know, those of Duck Dynasty, if you ever watched it. I never actually watched it, but I listened to their podcast, Unashamed, and it's a Bible study class online, and they tell a whole bunch of Robertson stories, which are really interesting and fun to listen to. As I was listening to them and thinking about the wind and thinking about the Bible and Bible study, I was thinking about 1 Kings 19, where Elijah was called by the Lord to go out on the mount, and the wind was whipping by, and he said the Lord wasn't in the wind. And then after the wind, it was, I think, an earthquake, and the Lord wasn't in the earthquake. And then after the earthquake came a fire, the Lord wasn't in the fire. And then after all that, a still small voice. And that's what the Lord used. As I was in the wind today and also on the top of the mountain, I thought to myself, why would the Lord not use all of these powerful things to communicate to each one of us? What is it about the elements that he wouldn't use? I mean, obviously he's all powerful and he may want to get his point across and therefore have all these elements. But then I thought, you know what, though? It really is with the Lord an intimate relationship. Each one of us, in whatever it is that we're doing, has an intimate relationship. And when you have an intimate relationship, it's one that is close. It's not far away. And so close that it needs to be a whisper. It's that intimate moment where you have something shared with you and it's only for you. And it's so close and so intimate that it's in your heart and in your head, but not anything external. And not that the Lord can't show things externally. I mean, he definitely can. But what I saw and what I thought about is this is the intimate relationship that he has with us. So that was on the morning run and also on top of the mountain. I also wanted to talk to you just a little bit about the 14,000 foot peak. We climbed Mount Quandary, which is one of the easier 14,000 foot peaks. And when I say easy, it doesn't mean that it isn't work and energy. It just means that you don't have to use the technical climbing ropes, put on your crampons, put in all the protection that you have to have with a lead rope and carabiners and everything else that goes with rock climbing. It just means that when it's easy, you just hike up it. And when I even say it in such a way that it's like, really, just hike up it. Once you get above tree line, and if you've never been above tree line, it's quite the experience to be able to see really clearly and know that because the oxygen is so thin, the trees don't grow above tree line. It's usually around 13,100 feet to 500 feet, somewhere in there is tree line. As we got up above tree line, the other thing that's really interesting about climbing on any of these mountains is that when you look at it from a distance, it looks like one solid rock. Now, that may be the case underneath all the rocks that we were walking on, but the rocks themselves, or the mountain itself, is full of all these just broken apart pieces of rock. Again, thinking about 1 Kings 19 and Elijah. And as we walked and we got further and farther up the mountain, the oxygen becoming thin, it became very laborious to be able to take the next step. And it got to the point where you just had to focus on the next step. There wasn't anything other than the next step. If you focused on the peak, it was so far away. And there was what they call a false peak in between the actual peak and where you were. And so if you looked at that, you really got disheartened if you got to the false peak and then realized you still had another 500 feet. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're climbing up a vertical face, and I'm vertical being that it's just very hard to climb up this face. When you're climbing up that vertical face, you're realizing that it's not about the peak anymore. Even though it's important to have that goal in the distance, it's really about the next step and how you can focus on that next step. All of this comes together as I completed a few of my streaks this morning in thinking about every single streak is the next step. And if I start thinking about the destination, not that I can't have it in view every once in a while, but if I start thinking about and only looking at the destination, it seems so far away that I get really discouraged. And that discouragement then has an impact on everything else that I'm doing. Whereas if I look at the small step, the one that is right in front of me, for example, this morning, the streaks that I completed, running or walking at least 1 mile, picking up at least one piece of trash, going outside at least one time every day, looking for something inspirational every day or searching for it every day, some person, place, or thing every day. As I look at just doing that and completing that for the day, now I start to feel that success in my life, and you'll start to feel it as well. As you go about looking for the destination, if you put your sights on that, it seems so far away that discouragement can be your constant companion. Whereas, if you look at the simple, small step, that intimate step, the next one that you're going to take, that then gives you the success to continue forward, the courage to go onward. That was a few of the thoughts that I had today that I wanted to share with you. As we keep going with the Streaking Podcast, I'm going to be sharing a few more of these. We'll get a little bit more consistent. We're also going to continue to invite guests on the show, and Jamie will be joining me from time to time. But I thought that, it might be interesting to hear a little bit more about and to understand how streaking impacts my everyday life and what it is that I do in order to keep moving forward. And it may not be interesting, but hey, I'll share it anyway. Hopefully you have a wonderful day and you are looking at your streaking success and moving forward with it. If you want to follow us on the Streaking app, you can do that. Just download the Streaking app from Apple or Google Play, and you can log in, register, start your own streaks. We have some suggested streaks that come along with that. Really also see what other people are doing to improve their lives, one single activity at a time. Well, until we talk again, keep streaking.